There's Mike.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
It's okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the teleconference. This is the Library Advisory Commission, LAC meeting for February 22nd, 2021. If you'd prefer to join by phone only, you'll see a couple of options in just a moment. To join this webinar using a telephone only, dial any of the following numbers, and I'll read two of them aloud. 1-833-548-0276 or 1-877-853-5247, and then slowly enter the webinar ID of 976-1800-4810. As an attendee, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. Your microphone is muted for the entire presentation unless you have a comment. You do not need a microphone, camera, or a screen if you only want to listen to the meeting, as it is accessible by landline or mobile phone. If you need assistance, please call the library's telephone information line at 1-831-427-7713. The Commission will take public comments as outlined in the posted agenda and in the next slides. All comments must include the agenda item number and be received prior to the close of public comment on that agenda item. If you're joining by computer, you may use the Q&A feature to type your comments. On the attendee control bar near the bottom of the screen, you'll see the Q&A icon. You may also use the raise hand icon to raise your hand. The moderator will call your name when it is your turn. State your full name for the record and then continue with your comment. You will have 3 minutes of speaking time. So in the lower left corner of your Zoom control bar, you'll see audio settings and then raise hand and Q&A, and then leave in a red rectangle. If you're using a mobile device, the Q&A icon and raise hand icons likely appear near the top corner of the screen. So everything's in reverse. In the upper left corner, you'll see leave meeting in red letters, and then the raise hand and Q&A icons in the upper right. If you have used Zoom to call into this meeting, you may raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. The moderator will call out the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to comment. Press *6 to unmute yourself. You will have 3 minutes of speaking time. Alternatively, you may call the library's telephone information line to timely submit your comments at 1-831-427-7713. These will be read by the moderator. Once the commission begins, if you're joining by computer, to see all panelists, you may need to use the Zoom control bar and select Gallery View. Depending on the size of your mobile device screen, you may need to scroll over to view whoever is speaking. And then finally, if you are accessing this meeting via the web browser only or a Chromebook, you will not see all panelists at one time, only the panelists speaking. The chair of the commission, Lindsay Bass, will now call the meeting to order. We're transitioning to Gallery View. Please stand by.
Thank you, Moderator Jones. So agenda number 1 on our meeting for tonight is our call to order, and I will ask Clerk Simona Vargas to please call the roll.
Rena Dubin.
I'm here.
Jim Landreth. I think he's absent at the moment. Mary Ripma.
Here.
Mike Termini.
Here.
Trisha Wynn,
Here.
Vice Chair Bruce Cotter,
Here.
Chair Lindsay Bass.
Here. Great, and we'll just try to make a note in the record if we have Jim join the call. Fantastic. So we'll move along to agenda item number 2, which is adoption of our agenda. Are there any technical or clarifying questions on the agenda for tonight? Are there any public comments on the agenda item for tonight?
There are no public comments at this time, Chair Bass.
Fantastic. I will now open it up to invite a motion.
I move
I'm-
approval of
I'm-
the agenda.
I
I
second.
have a move to approve the agenda by Commissioner Wynn and a second by Vice Chair Cotter. Clerk Suvano Vargas, will you please call the roll?
Rena Dubin,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Trisha Wynn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay Bass.
Hi. That motion passes unanimously. We have adopted our agenda for tonight. We'll move along to agenda item number 3, which is oral communications. I'll just read some brief instructions on how we'll handle oral communications tonight. Any member of the audience may address the board on any matter either on or off the agenda that is within the board's jurisdiction. Please note, however, that the board is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on any non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. If you intend to address a subject that is on the agenda, please hold your comments regarding the item until it is before the board so that we may properly address all comments on that subject at the same time. In general, 3 minutes will be permitted per speaker during oral communications, and a maximum of 30 minutes is set aside for oral communications at this time. Moderator Jones, do we have any public comments?
Chair
On
Bass,
oral.
there are no public comments.
Okay, great. We will move along to agenda item number 4, which is our report by the library director, and I will turn the floor over to Director Nimitz.
As you can see, I submitted a written report. We still have not entered the red tier. So we are operating as we have been operating with grab and go at the branches that are open. Our lendable tech has been circulating. We got a really nice comment from one of our customers in Scotts Valley talking about they were helping a nonprofit with it and how grateful they were to have the access to Wi-Fi at home. And we had another person talk about ebooks and digital books that they've got to work with at Santa Cruz High School. We were able to hire a series of staff members for our floating library assistant team with the budget changes that we requested mid-year. And there's been just a lot of progress on all of the branches. We're looking at Capitola having a grand opening on June 5th. We do suspect it will be modified because of the pandemic, but we're hoping to have some aspects of it that are live. Garfield Park is being handed over as we speak to the construction contractor, and construction will start there. La Selva Beach has planned a virtual grand opening on March 20th. More details to come. We will do a Zoom event, I think about 10 o'clock. We'll have a couple of pre-recorded and live speeches, and then we will provide an online virtual tour of the beautiful branch. Grab and go services will start there on March 22nd. But there will be limited access to the building because of the tier we're currently in. I want to say that Scotts Valley has done a lot of planning around improvements to the Scotts Valley Library. We're working with the team to try and coordinate both the seismic renovations and the interior design renovations. But it does appear that Scotts Valley will have to close for potentially up to 4 months in the fall. The seismic renovations are quite noisy. And so we're just trying to time those two events so that they occur at the same time and really limit the changes. I think people are going to be really impressed, though. I am so awed at what Scotts Valley was able to achieve on a very limited budget, but we're going to be able to address some ongoing issues like the acoustics in the building. For example, the meeting room is going to have walls to the ceiling and a lot of acoustic remedial work in the building, which I really think is going to improve our users' experiences. So I'm glad they were able to get some of the Measure S money and address some of those ongoing issues. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Lindsay Bath.
Okay, great. We'll now open it up for questions from commissioners on the director's report. I saw a hand up from Mike and Tricia. Anybody else in the queue? Okay, we'll start with Mike then, and I'll look for hands raised. And then
Hand raised. That was an inadvertent hand raise. Sorry, it's not. I have no comments. Thank you.
Tricia, comments? Question.
Thank you, Susan. You know, it's a lot of encouraging information. I did recognize one name on the list of people that you had rehired, or you had hired, and I know she was a rehire. And I'm wondering how many other people on that list were rehires. You're muted, Susan.
Sorry. I'm going to Laura to in the notes correct me, but I do believe everyone on that list either has been rehired or received additional hours as a result of this.
That's correct.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. We really are trying to bring our folks back. We promised the union that, and we had some really great staff that we had to let go. So it's been a joy. And it's really sped up the process because we didn't have to redo things like the background check.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or clarifying questions from commissioners? It's a really lovely mix of updates, Susan, and I especially like the testimonials that you included. So those are always nice to see. And I'm sure you guys received so many of those, but it's nice to see a couple of examples in the packet. So thank you for including that, and thanks for all the work that you all are doing. If there's no other comments or questions from commissioners, I'll open it up to public comment. Seeing none, Moderator Jones, are there any public comments on the report by the library director?
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
Okay, we will move right along then to item number 5 on the agenda, which is our member reports. So this is an opportunity for commissioners to share any updates from their respective areas. Are there any member reports tonight?
Well, I'm always really keen to talk about the cookies. And I had asked you, Lindsay, if there was a way that we could participate financially. Do you know?
I followed up with Yvonne, and he is checking with Kira. So for the Staff Appreciation Day, that will happen in April, early April. Commissioners are signing up to participate in the handout of cookies on that Appreciation Day. And then we're checking to see how commissioners can help with financing the purchasing of the cookies. So as soon as we get an update from Kira and Yvonne on that, we'll send that out to all commissioners. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Yes, Bruce.
Yeah, just on the same subject, we did discuss this at the Friends meeting. And at Susan's suggestion, Friends are going to leave this time to the Library Advisory Commission. And then the next opportunity that comes up, the Friends will step in and do it, since we had done it just a couple of months ago around Christmas time. So we thank you for what we're doing. We thank you for what, as a friend, thank all the Library Advisory Commission.
I think I'm supposed to be thanking you, actually, so thank you.
Well,
Okay.
that's nice. It's a nice kind of give and take there, and splitting of the appreciation that all the Friends groups and the commissioners want to be able to give to our incredible library staff. So excellent. We'll look to continue doing that baton handoff with you all.
Thank you.
Any other member reports before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay. Item number 6 for us tonight is the consent calendar. So very briefly, all items in the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the action, unless members of the public or the board request specific items to be discussed for separate review. Items pulled for separate discussion will be considered following general business. So I will ask commissioners if anyone would like to pull either of the following 2 items that are listed in our consent calendar. Item number A is minutes for January 25th, 2021, with a recommended action to approve the minutes. Item B is written communications to the commission. The recommended action is to accept communications. Are there any requests to pull either of these 2 items from the consent calendar?
Not a request to pull, but a correction on the minutes. I was an abstention regarding the minutes of 11/16.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Termini. Any other comments on the consent calendar from commissioners? Okay, Moderator Jones, are there any public comments on the consent calendar?
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
Okay, then at this time, I will invite a motion on the consent calendar, including the correction made by Commissioner Termini.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar by Commissioner Termini and a second by Commissioner Wynn. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Rena Jubin,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Tricia Wynn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving right along to item number 7 on our agenda tonight is general business. So general business items are intended to provide an opportunity for public discussion of each item listed. The following procedure is followed for each item. We start with staff explanation, then move on to board questions, then to public comment, board deliberation, and decision. So we'll move forward with item A under general business, which is the recommendations to improve public participation in LAC meetings. And I will turn this over to Director Nimitz and Commissioners Dubin and Vice Chair Cotter.
So I spoke with both Bruce and Rena just about how to move this forward, particularly as an advisory commission. So we really just made the change to the recommendation itself, which is we recommend that the library administration begin to implement recommendations and report back. And we talked continuously to the Library Advisory Commission, and our board secretary, Yvonne, is ready to report back upon approval of this recommendation.
Do commissioners have any questions?
Mhm.
Yes, Commissioner Wynn.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment, and I really am so appreciative of Bruce and Rena for, really kind of diving into this and really coming up with, I think, a fair and really reasonable recommendation. And I think it will serve us well, and I think it will serve our community well. So I just wanted to note that I'm very appreciative of your efforts.
And Commissioner Dubin?
I just want to make sure that the staff knows how much we appreciate all their efforts. I think in the last few weeks, especially the last 6 weeks, there's been a tremendous amount of change. The actual page is exactly how I think we wanted it. So just for the staff, very appreciative of the efforts and all of that good faith. I think this will really be improved from here on out. So.
And Vice Chair Cotter?
Yeah, I'd just like to second Rena's comments. The website just looks completely different. It's way improved. I've heard from people in the community about it, as all of us have, and really appreciate the effort. Would like to specify that we come back to this at each meeting for an update. It's not specific here. As we move through this list of things over the next few months, but I really feel like you guys have made a great start, and I appreciate it very much.
And is it okay if I have Yvonne show us the webpage right now?
All right then, yeah, so hi everyone, Clerk Simona Vargas here. Let me get the share screen going. Can you all you see the webpage up on your screen right now? Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the landing page here once you reach the Library Board's Library Advisory Commission section. And so I don't want to take credit for all of this because I actually don't have access to editing the website. So this was done by our Library Information Technology, or LIT for short. And specifically, this was put together by Ann Young. She said that she gave essentially a restyle the entire page here so that it's much easier to read and also mobile compliant. And so some of the suggestions you guys requested to change here was to provide, the annual meeting date. So there's a direct link at the front page that'll take you and show you every single meeting we have scheduled for the year. One of the other requested changes was under the listing for all the different seats of the commission to link the different vacancy postings.
Yvonne, can you talk about the problem you're having with that in terms of we don't control the other agencies' websites?
Yes, that is true. So so each agency has, they run those websites. So we don't have control over them. If something on those websites aren't appearing exactly how you want them to appear, you need to reach out to them. I've tried on some of these. So like there's one on the Santa Cruz website. They have, I think it was something like they don't list it because they don't consider the Library Advisory Commission an advisory board. They do post the vacancies, but they don't list it there because of specific requirements that the commission doesn't meet to be listed there. So we've made attempts to request for them to list them in one of the alphabetical lists there, but because it doesn't meet some of their specific requirements to be listed there, they won't change it. So those are some of the issues that we've had with changing the website on their end there. But some of the improvements we were able to do was the roster here. Once it loads up, we've begun adding pictures of every commissioner here. So if you still haven't sent me your picture here, please do so that I can update them.
That's
It
you,
looks just
Bruce.
like me.
We need your handsome mug. You also changed the email addresses on that page.
Yes, I did. So now everyone, it just lists a general email address for everyone, just the clerk@santacruzpl.org. And any emails sent to that email address, I receive, and then I just forward it over to the LAC commissioners. And we also are now starting to include them in the board packet. And that information is also listed down here on the front page, staff contact within specific statement inviting public comments. And I believe that's.
And I just want to say the two things we attempted is that we've created a section in the board packet for written comments to the board that'll make those written comments a part of the permanent record. The second thing is we did send a draft agenda item to the board a week in advance. But once again, I was unsuccessful getting the full board packet to you. We sent it on Friday.
And I believe that's everything. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share.
I do want to say by sending that earlier draft, it does give you greater opportunity to make changes or additions to the agenda. And so I just want to remind you, if you could take a quick look at the agenda, that does give us an opportunity to give the chairperson some feedback about the meeting itself. And again, you're also welcome to offer agenda suggestion items at any time. So we'll keep working on your list.
Is it possible for us to post the draft agenda?
Let me think about that. The discomfort I have is I don't want to make promises to the public that then we renege upon. Let me think about it.
Okay. We still face the issue of wanting to have the agenda in front of the public a little more than, late Friday when the meeting's on Monday. So just another way to consider skinning that cat.
And I know this is strange, but are people willing to consider changing the day of the week of this?
Yeah, I was just thinking that if Friday is the hard time for you, or the only time that you have to really go through, that could be a good solution.
We can talk some more, but we'll keep bringing this back.
Yes, Commissioner Wynn.
I wonder if maybe we could do a doodle poll, and just see, what days would definitely be out and, what days there's some flexibility. Because I completely understand where you're coming from, Susan, and you're jammed right until the end, but I would love to see a little bit more time. So maybe if we could be flexible, we could accommodate, your schedule.
Okay. I will have Yvonne do a doodle poll this month. And that's all I have, but I would like you to vote on the recommendation that the library administration begin to implement recommendations and report monthly back to the Library Advisory Commission.
Can I ask one more clarifying question before we vote? And this is phenomenal work. I feel like the packet in front of us, you guys have made so much headway on it already. Great work in terms of recommendations fed by the public, and then fast action, especially around the webpage and public comment pieces. Most of my questions relate to some of the particulars in the motions in the agenda section. And I just want to make sure that in moving forward with the recommendation, and it sounds like this is the case, but I just want to make sure that there is flexibility for the library director to report back if the recommendation was partially implemented or not feasible.
Yeah, and I think
So
that
you'll-
we wanted to make it a recommendation as opposed to a, something more strongly worded, that this is the direction we'd like to go, but to give Susan and her staff the flexibility to get
Right.
there in the way that's most effective for them and gives us the result we're looking for.
Perfect. Fantastic. Before we move to a motion, I just want to check to see if there are any public comments.
Chair
the
Bass,
step-
there are public comments on item 7A. The first
Okay.
one comes from Judy Gunstra, and it says, once again, I appreciate the work done to improve public participation on the LAC. And the second one is a follow-up to a previous comment that she entered, but I just wanted to put it on the record that she did mention for 7A, Yvonne just explained the reason this was a problem with the county page. She had posted a comment about the county page being updated. So, and that ends public comment.
Great. Thank you, Judy, for those comments and your feedback throughout the process. Okay, I will now open it up for a motion on item A under general business.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, so Vice Chair Cotter has made a motion to approve the recommended action to recommend that the library administration begin to implement recommendations and report back to the LAC on the improved public participation, staff report and LAC meetings. We have a second from Commissioner Dubin. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Rena Dubin,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Trisha Wynn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay Bass. Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Item B on our general business agenda is the Library Finance Workshop, Part 2. So this is the exciting conclusion.
Exciting conclusion.
Continuation. I will hand it over to Director Nimitz.
Well, according to the JPA, we must reach consensus to make changes in the budget. And so all four board members of the JPA must agree. It's not a majority rule activity. And so I just wanted to go through what I need to try and get the JPA to agree on to create the basis of our budget. This is before we calculate it, it's just some generic agreements. And while we talked about them last month, I wanted to talk about them a little bit more. I was hoping Jim would be here because he kind of had high interest in some of these things. But we learned about the maintenance of effort fund. It's called the County Library Fund. And it includes both the property taxes from all jurisdictions except for the city of Santa Cruz. Those jurisdictions include Watsonville, which is complicated. It also, and so how you divide the maintenance of effort county library fund was agreed upon 5 years ago. And there was an agreement that would require Santa Cruz, the city, to continually pay more and actually take away county library fund money from the city of Watsonville over 5 years. And it was supposed to sort of even out some disparities. That was supposed to be negotiated by June 30th of this year. I have been asking to have it negotiated for the last 3 years. And I honestly was really disappointed when suddenly the board was saying, we don't think we're going to do another year hold on this. What's happening is the county library fund is generating $2 million a year more than the library's getting. And it's really frustrating when you're counting paper clips to have a $2 million recurring fund in the bank outside of your control. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think it's because any of the board members don't want the library to have the funds. I think that the problem is I can't get 4 of them to agree how that's going to happen. But it's put us into, I believe, a 5-year stall. And I don't want to make it a 6-year stall or a 7-year stall. You also have to remember they're my bosses. So the way how we get this done in some ways doesn't matter to me as much as we get it done and we maintain the relationships that I continually need to get unanimity in decision making. Now, Nicole, who you met last time, she's the assistant chief CAO. I always want to say I was come out of university, so I want to say academic officer, administrative officer. And she tends to do most of the financial work for the JPB, and she's just very good, very trustworthy, high sense of integrity. And so when she says, I think we should wait a year and be patient, I think she's trying to unpack the politics and give some good advice. The problem I have is we can also just keep putting off difficult decisions into perpetuity. And we have 1 more year in our budget of wildly changing environmental factors like branches opening and closing due to, but we have 1 more year. And it would be really nice to go into the next fiscal year understanding what the budget and the expectations are. And so I have to go to the board with a recommendation, but I'm not sure what that is yet, honestly. Part of what I wanted to do is hear from you if you have any advice or recommendations.
Commissioner Termini and then Commissioner Wynn.
Susan, if I could ask you, where does that 2 million come from? What accounting line are we seeing that?
The 2 million that's in the library fund is kept at the county and not distributed to the library.
I understand that. I'm just trying to find out where it comes from. Is it part of the maintenance of effort? Is it part of the Measure S? Where is it?
It's the 2 million, and it's an excess annual 2 million is coming in from property taxes in the county and the city of Watsonville. So off the top, some has to go to Watsonville.
Understood. But I just don't remember that particular part of the new library JPA structure at the time. I know that Measure S funds were delivering more than we expected. I know that's being delivered for capital improvements, but I didn't realize they were holding back on the maintenance of effort.
I don't think anybody does. No.
I might suggest this may or may not go over well with the rest of the commissioners, but I think that it would help you and it would help the library in general if each of us spoke to our respective city manager that sit on the JPA and see what their thoughts are on this, and we could, somehow get some feedback.
I think that would be helpful if you are comfortable. And actually, Mike, I think it'd be particularly helpful for you to talk to Jamie about it.
I will do that. I will do that first thing tomorrow, actually.
Great, thanks, Mike. Tricia?
Thank you, and thanks, Mike. I mean, that's absolutely wonderful. And I always do believe that there's a room for advocacy in these types of organizations, and I hope we will all, feel comfortable being proponents for the library system when we can. Susan, mine isn't a comment as much as it's a question. So you said we're kind of doing a squaring up, a leveling off. So how dramatic is that leveling up that we have to do? I mean, is it budget dust, or is it really significant amounts of money?
So basically, the county has frozen the amount of money they give the library for the last 5 years,
Okay.
which why this excess is pooling.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Santa Cruz has only been adding $70,000 a year. And you have to realize we're coming off of 2010, which was the lowest budget ever this library has ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so at a point in which we should be building back, we're building back at $70,000 a year, which doesn't necessarily cover our salary increases or benefit increases. Where we have, there's another source of funds, which is our sales tax. And where we have done well is that sales tax fund has grown aggressively over the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
But we also learned in 2010 that sales tax can be, it can swing wildly. And so I would love the core property tax funds to be the core funds of the library. And to be very honest, I'm taking a calculated risk by bringing this up and expanding the conversation to a broader group of people, because it's kind of a nerdy budget thing to know and understand. But I think the consequences of not having those resources impact the library's hours and services. The other thing I want to say is for the last 5 years, when the county has held the money static, they have been spending it on the library. So when there was excess money, what they did is they gave that excess money to the projects so that the building projects could be bigger. It's one of the reasons that all the projects were underfunded. But when they got the Measure S money plus this extra money, the Scotts Valley, Capitola, and county projects then had a little boost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the reasons why the city of Santa Cruz projects are still kind of underfunded, because they didn't get any boost like that.
Well, just to follow up on my question, Bruce, I know you have one. Is there something that we could do, those of us that are, in the county, is there something that we could do to talk to our county representatives, or is this really kind of a city issue?
And so this is where I'm treading softly. I need 4 people to say, yes, we'll give you the MOE money. But I need to feel my JPA, my bosses, to feel like I'm not going around them per se and over their heads. And so I'm treading carefully on this one. Actually, Mike, it might be interesting for you to have this conversation, and potentially, if you're willing, Trisha and Bruce, and maybe what we could do is kind of see how this goes. I do think that Martine Bernal would be willing to negotiate that this year. And to be honest, I don't know where this county stands on this exactly, but Jamie is also sort of a number cruncher, number geek, and I would love to see what progress we could make with Jamie outside of me. And then maybe we could have some conversations.
I'd like to be part of that conversation. I'd be very happy to talk to any of the supervisors.
We have till June. So, this is sort of baseline budget.
Mm-hmm.
But but I'm trying to get off the dime on some of these issues.
And Bruce?
Yeah, Susan, could you and I just talk? I mean, I'm happy to get on the phone and have the conversation. I'm just not sure I have it clear enough in my mind to be a good representative. To me, it's
And
like there's a percentage of money we should be getting, but as that percentage has been growing, they've just been giving the number that they started giving and holding off the growth in the percentage, but I'm not sure I understand that clearly. And so if you could find time to have that conversation with me, I'd appreciate it.
I also just need to be really respectful of the Brown Act. So we may have to do this over the next several months,
Okay.
but I feel like we have time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not interested in making a decision. I'm interested in understanding the budget process so I can talk to it.
And then Raina, did you have a comment?
Just to say that I'm happy to talk to anyone. So I look forward to this continued conversation. And just to be clear, just seeing the downtown library and how it not having the money that it needed, I think that contributed so terribly to the building having so much deferred maintenance, that we're putting so much into these new buildings, and it's very important to me that, that they last and that we're giving them, it's not as sexy as, open hours or all these programs that we can do, but, no one really wants to fund maintenance, but I think it's part of our responsibility to make sure that you have the budget you need going forwards.
And I would say that we'll get into this at number 4, but part of where this money should go, I think, is maintenance. So we'll get into that as well. The second thing is our approach to budgeted reserves and fund balance. I do want you to know that we have a fund, or a budgeted reserve of 20%, which tends to be high. I did find out that Capitola actually has a 25% budgeted reserve. And really, in government, what you tend to see is higher budgeted reserves the smaller the organization is. And they tend to be lower the larger the organization is. And that is because, like a major, we've had so many disaster, a flooding of Capitola on a small budget could just have such a disastrous impact, where the county has a bigger budget to manage some of the disasters, though we've all seen the limits to that as well. So I really don't have any problem with a 20% budget. It seems in the realm of what the cities are doing, and the county within the realm of responsible stewardship. It is about $2.8, $2.9 million that we have in our reserved budget. On top of that, we have tended to have $1 million to $2 million fund balance every single year. And I keep trying to spend it because I don't think that taxpayers necessarily want their money in fund balances. I think they want the services and programs, and especially when we deny them hours or the collection they want, I think they get frustrated by that. Why are you taxing me? So the thing I just wanted to give back to you is, I don't want to have additional reserves in the library fund. So if we have a $2 million reserve in the library fund, we have a $3 million reserve in the library, and then we have $2 million in fund balance. It's a lot of reserve for an organization our size, and I think we're really beginning to move beyond what is intended. I do, and I would like to bring forward a proposal in the next year that will spend the fund balance. I'm fully committed to the budgeted reserve. But we have some real financial needs, both in terms of staff and in terms of collections. And so I think one of the things that you'll see us doing is bringing forward the use of fund balance. Now, an elected official will always say you can't put a permanent expenditure on a one-time funding source. And we need to be really cautious about not creating structural imbalances. But I have to say, we keep having plans to spend the money and still end up with fund balances. And in part, it's the way we budget through the city's budgeting process in a very conservative way that results in fund balances. I'm also a little afraid because we became so conservative this year that that fund balance might be quite large. You know, we cut our cleaning contracts, we cut our security contract. There's so many reductions we took. We might be surprised. The third thing is determining the City of Santa Cruz's overhead charge. I think we talked about this fully last time. They definitely do need to do a cost study. We have a brand new accounting manager. This is something I think we need a year to complete appropriately. So the plan is to move forward with a 5% increase and have them do that cost study. When the cost study's done, my gut, honestly, is that we're paying too little. So to delay 1 year is going to help us out a little bit. But I just don't think they have the capacity this year. And then the last thing really is, Rena, what you brought up. We really need to create a maintenance pool. So you need to operate your facilities, janitors, security, cleaning. And then you need to create a capital fund that really is a savings account for when your roof goes down or the HVAC blows up. And we had proposed, there's some dates there, in May of 2017 that we start to do this. In 2018, the JPA approved it. And so our goal was to add $50,000 a year to this pool, to the point where we're giving the pool $400,000 a year. Part of the issue around the MOE is 4 different interpretations about how we should fund maintenance and who should provide it. Okay. And part of what I'm saying is, I know you want to negotiate the two together, but that might take 10 years. Let's negotiate how the money comes in, and then let's negotiate how the money goes out. And so we'll see what happens. But I just want to say I'm 100% with you, Rena. And I actually think all the board members agree that they want to set aside funds to maintain these buildings. I just think they have 4 different ideas about how you do that. And the principle that I want is relatively simple. And to be honest, I don't want to have 4 or 5 different maintenance departments.
Mhm.
So that's all I have on this. But all of these become sort of really fundamental pieces of how both next year and the following year's budget are going to be managed. And they really come in the approach of what your assumptions are about revenue and expenditures. So it even comes before the decision making about which expenditures to fund or not to fund. It's sort of a more philosophical basis. And I think we need to have more conversations about that and include more people in those conversations.
Mhm.
Are there any follow-up comments or questions on items 2 through 4 that Susan covered? Yeah, Bruce.
This is not specific to the items, but it is relative to the slide deck that's included in the packet. Specifically on page 16, you have an organization chart that appears to show the Library Advisory Commission reporting to the director. That's not my understanding of how this works. If there's a dotted line, it should also be going to the JPA. It seems to me, I think we're advisory to them and possibly to the people who appoint us to the LAC. So can you comment on that, please?
I have no comment on that. If people are comfortable with that, I'll make the change. We will approve it as part of the budget document. We started operating from an org chart that we had. I think the things that you've commented are true, and I'd be happy to change the org chart to reflect that.
Okay.
Are there any other comments or clarifying questions?
I would just ask Yvonne, will you make a note of that and send it to Kira?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Rena.
I'm just, oops, 1 second. Can you hear me okay? Oh, okay. I'm just wondering if there are any ways that, anything that we should be doing right now, or should we be waiting?
I think we have, and honestly, I think I have to develop some strategy with the board. I also need to really be transparent with the board. I don't want to in any way manipulate them. So I have nothing right now other than I now have 7 more people who understand maintenance of effort and where funds are and aren't in our budget, which to me is a step forward.
I'll let Commissioner Wynn make a comment. I have a follow-up.
Bruce, just back to your point. So are you looking at the org chart? Are you saying that the Library Advisory Commission should have a dotted line going to the Joint Powers Authority and to the director?
I would be okay with that. This just appears as though we provide input just to the director. And my understanding is that we are an advisory commission based on the documents that set us up, PA. And
Yeah.
I think that should be reflected in this.
Right. So 2 lines rather than 1 line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I agree with that. Yeah.
That was what I heard.
Thank you.
And then just a comment based on the conversation, and thank you. This continues to be really helpful in terms of understanding the big issues. One thing, maybe just as a thought, as a way to approach this for commissioners, is to let Mike have an initial conversation to inform. I would love if I had something like FY22 budget principles for the library that I could advocate for with my county supervisor or with county administrators, that might be very helpful. So some kind of document that kind of laid out what we're looking for them to kind of shift to on these issues. That would
love
help
that idea. I would love that idea. So we'll bring draft next meeting. We tend to do something like that. So, but I'm not sure we've necessarily used the commission in this way.
And then I think we've got Rena, and we'll try to wrap up our comments so that we can go to public comment. Yes, Rena.
Just to say that I really feel like the commission should be, as Bruce is saying, that we really should take on our advisory role to the JPA, and that it can be a discussion with those members that are on the GPA as opposed to just a one-sided advocacy, because I would like to hear kind of what their concerns are, and see how we can all collectively come to really good conclusions.
I do want to say that the chair reports to the JPA at every single meeting. And part of what they do is talk about what we've discussed. And so this will come up at the next JPA meeting where we talked about the MOE and the library fund.
Can I make a quick suggestion? Would it be possible for us to have a meeting with the JPA sometime so that they know who we are?
I have it in my notes, Bruce. I haven't brought it up with them yet. You had brought that up with me the other day.
Yes.
I just think it would be great to do it annually if they'd be interested. Maybe it could become custom. I'm not sure the budget is the exact time to do it first. But I don't know. I actually think they might find it really helpful too. I was talking to Mike, today about what is the LAC and how is it working out. He's been through this for a number of years, and this idea of community standards. Carlos made it clear, I don't want to be the community standard judge. And it's one thing to say, oh, well, you just want to take them on because those are hard things. But it is, to me, very reflective that you are the reflection of the community. And it is appropriate to have a commission that process this from a community perspective, especially when we don't have elected officials on our board. And then I just want to also say in a lot of states, the citizen board is the board for the library. A lot of states do not have elected boards at all. So, but I do think they seriously want to hear what you have to say. So.
Great. So we'll explore that possibility. And I love your comment, Rena, about, having that be a two-way dialogue. So something for us all to consider as we move forward in these tricky budgetary times. If there are no further comments on the financial workshop, I want to check in and see if we have any public comments on this general business item. Moderator Jones, are there any public comments on?
There are. The first one is from Judy Grenstra. It says, please include redone org chart in next LAC packet. And the next one, I believe, is for 7B. It says, can I ask a clarifying question about the topic of the excess money that is not getting to the SCPL? Is this money being held up by the county itself as the collector of property taxes, or is this money held up by the Library Joint Finance Authority? End of public comments.
So the decisions about the distribution of the library fund are held in the LFA. Remember our packet with all of those abbreviations, and need to be approved by the supervisors.
And Chair Bass, if I could just clarify that the second comment that I read, that was from Jesse, not from Judy Grenstra. I don't think I clarified that. So my apologies.
Thank you. And thank you for the clarification.
I just also want to say it doesn't take a motion to hold it back. It takes a motion to distribute.
Can you say that one more time, Susan? I'm not sure I understood that completely.
No one has ever made a motion in the LFA to reserve the funds.
I see.
the motion that is required is the funds are distributed. And so I just want to say, again, I don't want to demonize anyone here. I really like my board. I think they're smart people. I think for me, it's really difficult to make decisions in an environment that requires unanimity. And what they are doing is representing each of their own jurisdictions and trying to figure out what is best for that jurisdiction. So what I'm trying to do is be an advocate for the library.
So just to be clear, there is some way where an account that is growing by $2 million a year that has $8 or $10 million sitting in it right now?
It was growing by 2 million a year, but the LFA distributed the resources, the excess, to Felton, the county libraries,
Okay.
Capitola and Scotts Valley. They didn't distribute any to Watsonville or Santa Cruz libraries to improve the quality of the buildings by putting cash towards the buildings.
Okay.
So I think that at the end of this year, there's only going to be the $2 million.
Okay.
They've spent all the other excess. And again, inevitably, they only spend it on the libraries. There's no malfeasance going on
No, I
here.
understand. Yeah.
It's just, and then the power is held within the LFA, not within the Joint Powers Board.
It's a complicating structure to navigate. Yeah, but I think the intention is to, utilize the available fund balances in a manner that's going to maximize services and benefits to the community. So I think we all understand the intention behind the conversation being that. And it sounds like we continue to learn, and we will continue to do so as follow-up to this conversation, and hopefully bring this back at a subsequent agenda to talk through how this body can be of benefit in moving the dialogue forward in our role.
Thank you.
With that, I'd like to entertain a motion on this item. So the recommended action is to review and accept this report. And I think we've also just agreed that we'll bring this back for further dialogue.
Well, I would like to move that we review and accept the report with the amended change to page 16, the org chart that I suggested.
Fantastic. So we have a motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
I could second.
Seconded by Commissioner Dubin. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Rena Dubin,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Trisha Wynn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for your attention on these complicated matters and for all the very helpful feedback and comments. I think it'll be interesting as we move this forward. And I just want to reflect that all of us are relatively new to the commission. And so I think we're going to become more and more of an asset as we get the foundation of understanding underneath our feet so that we can really help conversations as we move forward. So the last item on the general business agenda is item C, library hours discussion. I'll turn this over to Director Nimitz.
I know you must be getting tired with hefty subjects. But this also becomes an important one. What has been interesting is we framed up a philosophy in 2017, I think it was. Maybe it was, yeah, it was in 2017 to get some pilot hours added to the library system. 2018 was the last time all the branches were open together. We won't be done with our building projects until 2025. And each building project is going to impact all our measures of use. What's interesting about that is sometimes they will encourage someone to go to a different library than they had been. But I can pretty much guarantee it's going to bring new users in. One of the things we have to do is figure out how to determine branch hours. It has everything to do with staffing. In a perfect world, if I was the perfect library director, I would keep public libraries open from 10 in the morning till 9 at night, Monday through Thursday. And I would probably do 10 to 6 on Friday and 10 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. I would just go with retail hours. They're relatively intuitive. We have been far, far, far from reaching those kind of hours. One of the things we realized is we may never get to a point where we can keep all 10 branches available like that. One of the most important things I learned from the strategic planning exercise we did as a board last time, which was 2016. So we talked to our patrons. They said we're too downtown centric in terms of programs. And we don't all want to drive downtown, especially during rush hour, which is brutal in this community, to go to a lovely author talk. We really want to distribute those kinds of programs and activities across all 10 libraries. So it really ups the demands for services at all 10. And as you look at the changes we're making to the facilities, we're adding things like program rooms. You know, think of Felton now versus what Felton was. It really is giving those communities the opportunity. Capitola is another good example. The opportunity to host and be a part of those kinds of learning programs. So our next step in 2017 was to say, let's think regionally. We went east, west, and north, and say, okay, we can't offer those full service hours at every branch, but can we cover the spectrum within a region? Because it's a lot more easy for someone from Capitola to drive to Aptos than to drive downtown. So let's start thinking about, like we had very few Sunday hours. It was only downtown. It was only 4 hours a week. Can we have Sunday hours in every region? So if you have a hankering or you work on Saturdays, that you still have some geographic options. To add to this, there's a whole spectrum of programming. It's from little kids, preschool, they don't know how to read yet. School age kids have a whole bunch of programming. You start getting into tech literacy, you start getting into STEM. Junior high is actually a great time to meet kids at the library. And if you look at what happened at Scotts Valley, by creating places for the preteens to go, they have a high need. A lot of them, parents work. They need a place that's productive to go to after school. What's interesting is we tend to lose them a little bit around 16. What would be great is if we can do some programs, though, for the teenagers. One of the things that a lot of teenagers do like is a place to study. And then we have a whole range of adult programs that are needed and wanted. One of our emerging groups, it really are the contract worker who's looking for a place to do work so they don't have to be alone. I think that's going to grow hugely in the next couple of years. If you looked at Live Oak, during the day, Live Oak was a lot of contract workers doing their home office out of the library. And I don't think it's necessarily that they didn't have a home office, they needed a space. So again, you can take that spectrum of services and say, I can't offer that at all 10 libraries, but could we offer all of those services across a region? And so we really tried to do that. And so maybe you'd have a librarian in, a region was Boulder Creek, Felton, Scotts Valley. Maybe you have 3 librarians assigned to the region. Maybe there's one in each building, but the truth, one specializes in teen services, one specializes in adult services, one specializes in children's services, and they all 3 serve all 3 branches. So you get that spectrum. And then there are a whole bunch of sort of bureaucratic things that affect hours and services. Everything from a union contract that makes people have a lunch and 2 breaks, to somebody doesn't have a program room. So do they really need to be open in the evening? Are their users really going there in the evening? So with you, we really have to have a plan for hours by a year from this summer when all 10 libraries are online. What we had suggested, and at first the JPA balked, was to renegotiate it every summer. They hated that at first, but actually it does allow use to change hours and staffing. And we proposed a series of use statistics. So, high circ libraries get more hours. High computer use libraries get more hours. And then I just want to throw one last thing out is we can also be more creative. So we talk about hours, but libraries are messing with hours in new and innovative ways. San Jose checks out meeting rooms after hours. No library staff person in the building. They have partners. You have to go through a little training. You get a key card, and you extend the use. Downtown would have First Fridays. Remember First Fridays? We would always do art shows. And so the first Friday night of the month downtown was open, but it wasn't, the whole library wasn't open. It was just the upstairs. And actually we're designing all these libraries so that components of them can be open and components of them can be closed. So an hour is not an hour is not an hour. Maybe we know that like the toddlers come in and they nap in the afternoon. So maybe the kids' room's open in the morning. And maybe it's not staffed in the afternoon. Maybe a lot of seniors don't like to drive at night. It's going to be interesting too with Zoom. Zoom's actually driving more people to our programs than we had before. I mean, I just think we got to think about the versatility of our buildings and our staffing in different ways. So I don't want to belabor this, but I just want you to talk over the top of your head about what is equity and what kind of hours do you want to see? And if you have innovative ideas, I'll take them.
Rena.
I don't have any innovative ideas. But I do think that I really noticed the regional approach when that started, and I thought it was really, really helpful. I also like the idea of specialty libraries. so that people know where they can go if they have toddlers, and that's where they'll expect the story times, and maybe the collections can reflect that and the hours can reflect that. And some libraries may not need those morning hours in the same way. I'll just tell you, as a patron, I would really appreciate consistent hours. Like I'd rather like to throw in a morning hour to me here and there. Like I know the downtown library is open at 10 on Fridays, but now that's in my head, but it's just so much easier to keep track of steady hours as opposed to hours that flip around. So I would just rather see the toddlers and the after school tutoring and all of that, and maybe adult programming, and this could be targeted to different libraries and different hours. So
Thank you.
those are my first thoughts.
Bruce, and then we'll go to Tricia.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Regional, when you talk about the regions, I understand the San Lorenzo Valley. What are the other regions? Are there 3 total regions?
Yep. So then it's downtown Garfield and Branciforte is considered west.
Okay.
And the other 4, so Aptos, Capitola, La Selva Beach, and Live Oak are considered east. And you don't have to break it up that way.
And
We looked at it in terms of commuting, honestly. And it's the Highway 1, Highway 17.
Sure. And then I should know this, but I just don't off the top of my head. Do you have specific teen librarians, preteen librarian who are focused on just creating programs for those audiences?
I think we're so shy librarians. We were hoping to that people have are doing much broader programming than they ever trained or intended. But I think a lot of the librarians would love to go back to it. But there's a couple who really like being a generalist, and I think there's a place for that as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's some special populations that it would be great to hire for, in particular, Spanish-speaking children.
Commissioner Wynn?
Well, when I read this agenda item, my head almost exploded. I mean, I'm really quite excited about, just offering more hours, and certainly those high population libraries who can accommodate. I mean, I watch Aptos. That meeting room is busy from 10 in the morning until the library closes. So I'm excited. I really just want to offer my assistance any way I can help on this, because it's really just an incredibly exciting opportunity.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Other comments or questions from commissioners?
Mary, you have something to say. You're an old library hand.
So the only thing I was thinking about is how my last position up on campus had to do with late night hours. But I don't know that it really applies. But, people were amazed that students would be there till 3 a.m. when we were open that late. And, people who use it when you've got it open. I love your scenario with, Monday through Friday, 10 to 9. That was so true in communities where I've lived before.
Mary, I think it's a great comment. I have 2 examples to pull from, and just kind of one general principle around it, which I think is think about maintaining flexibility in the planning of, and I know, Susan, you were saying kind of every year you kind of review it. But I think even throughout the year, like when I supervised libraries in Palo Alto, we kept the public libraries open late at night, specifically for teens during exam period. So it was a safe place for them to go to, and the librarians provided food for them as well, and some activities to break away so that they weren't stressing out about the exams, and we provided other supports for them. And when I supervised libraries in Salinas, we had a big focus on early education, and we ran a boot camp for the kindergartners before they went into kindergarten, because so many of them didn't have that pre-K experience. and what we took over the libraries for that, and then we froze hours just for the families of the kindergartners just before kindergarten started, so that we knew this was the beginning of their academic career. We wanted to make sure that they had library cards. And then we had stations for the families, for the parents to go to learn about all the services, not just for the kids, but for those parents as well. So it was kind of a great way. It was to kind of capture that audience. But nobody could enter the library unless you were a family member of a kindergartner. And it was just frozen for, a couple. We did that at all of the libraries. They had designated days and times. And of course, it annoyed some of the patrons who were expecting to use the library, but we did our best to advertise it ahead of time that we were making this change for this special need. And I think it helps to build in a level of expectation around flexibility. So if you're managing stress for teens during exam periods, or you identify a particular need in the community for early education, you can accommodate those needs too.
Interesting.
Rena.
And just to piggyback on that a little bit, like I know that toddlers and younger children, they're going to need the library services because they will want to check out books, and we want them to check out books. But for studying, those teenagers, they need the space, and workers, they want the space. So I love how we've designed the libraries, that it's so exciting to me, because we really can cordon off a lot of the checkout services and the collections. Those don't necessarily need to be part of it for certain populations.
Are there any other comments?
So I just want to reiterate, I've always used data to determine hours. We're not going to have good data for at least 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've completely mucked up our data. So we're going to do our best.
Commissioner Dubin.
Sorry to talk so much, but just as far as collecting data, I would love it if we weren't collecting data just based on circulation, but based on people in the building and people in the programs. I don't know how you collect it now, but just, it seems to me that the spaces that are being created are not necessarily being created that they will lead to more circulation, and it's still a positive for the library.
It might be worthwhile. I can tell you what we're collecting, how we're doing it at a different meeting, but it may be worthwhile to think about if there are new ways and new, our services against the data collection.
Just I'll follow with a comment. It would be really interesting to look at utilization and what key performance indicators will drive this ultimately, what you guys will use, in the interim in this 5-year challenging time frame, and then once you're in a position where you have all the buildings up and running, what that will look like. The other thing is, everybody's been talking, that I just want to mention, is the possibility of maybe bifurcating what is agreed to on a longer time horizon, maybe being those more essential static services, and maybe you guys create the opportunity to, on a more regular time horizon, negotiate dynamic elements of these regional programs.
Mm-hmm.
And if that might be something that would be received with greater enthusiasm. I don't know if that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder how much we're going to find that people's behavior relative to the library has changed over the last year. I know that I have certainly become much navigating the catalog online, and very comfortable with placing an order and going a couple of days later and picking it up at the branch. I just, how many people are going to find themselves in the same boat?
It's such a good question. And how many of our customers will have moved to digital? And But I also have to say that I am so physically dying to be in a crowd and to be around people. I mean, don't you almost want to talk to strangers? Like,
As
and
soon as
maybe our,
it's safe, Susan, I promise to come over and just hang out
thank
at
you.
your office, you know?
My, but Bruce, it's such a good comment though, that our behavior over the next couple of years, I can't quite predict either.
Mhm.
And I'm worried about time, but I have a feeling that this group is going to be talking about hours a lot yearly. And if you can help us develop that long-term framework, I'm sure the board is going to start having us do some predictions.
Mhm.
And so I suspect we'll start talking about it now, if that's okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then I just wanted to say at the next meeting, if it's okay if I move on. The other thing that's on our plate is strategic planning. We had put it off for a year, but we're going to have to complete a strategic plan by July of next year as well. So Eric's going to come to this group and just talk about our last strategic plan and what we did. And we can talk some possibilities about how we may go about it. So think about if you've participated in processes you really liked, if you know people that are really good. But I think having a strategic plan by July of next year will serve us well with the new branches going online.
Excellent.
I'm making you think out far, but we got a lot on the plate of this group, actually.
Mhm.
And all these things is kind of dovetail. They will all come together. So yeah, some exciting, important work ahead of us. Before we close this item, I do want to turn to public comment. I believe we do have a public comment on item C. Moderator Jones, can you verify that for me?
We do. We have two public comments. The first one is from Judy Grunshaw, and it says discussion mentions, quote, all 10 library buildings, end quote. If you count the Live Oak Annex, that makes 11 buildings. Measure S mentions 10 branches. Are there in reality 10 branches or 11? The next comment is also from Judy Gunshaw. It says, since there are plans to greatly increase the size of the children's area downtown, that would seem to necessitate that large space is staffed all the time or use that space for other purposes at certain times of the day. I think that's what they do at the Los Gatos Library. And that ends the public comments.
Great, thank you, Moderator Jones. Director Nemitz, do you have a clarification on the number of branches?
We have 10 branches and an annex.
And an annex. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Judy, for those comments. Very helpful. With that, we will move to entertaining motions on item C.
I'm not sure what the recommendation is for a motion.
Neither am I.
It doesn't require a motion, actually. It really is just to accept the
Okay.
report.
Okay.
So I move to accept the report.
I second.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Oh, you guys are a great group. Okay, we have a motion to accept the report and a second by Vice Chair Cotter. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please call the roll?
Rena Dubin,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Trisha Wynn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And we are in the home stretch. Item 8 on the agenda is scheduled upcoming meetings. So our next meeting will be April 19th at 6:30 p.m. And currently we have FY22 draft budget as a draft agenda item for that topic. So members of the public, if there are other items that are of interest to you, we've discussed ways to provide feedback on that agenda process, and commissioners as well. There have been several items mentioned today that we'll bring back at the next meeting. We'll do our best to juggle requests and keep our meetings within reasonable timeframes. So with that, I will move on to item 9, which is meeting adjournment. So thank you so much, everyone, for your investment of time this evening.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.